Hello, everyone. Can you hear me on this? Is this working? Doing all right? All right. Before I call the meeting to order, I'll note for the record that I am going to serve as acting chair. I now call to order the meeting of the directors of the New York State Urban Development Corporation doing business as Empire State Development, February 15th, 2018. To ensure maximum opportunity for participation, we do welcome input from the public. If you're here to make comment on an item on today's agenda, if you're an individual, 2 minutes. If you're representing a group, up to 4 minutes. All the directors have received the materials in advance and are free to ask questions at any time. I'll now ask if any of the directors have any conflicts of interest or need to abstain from any item on the agenda. I think, Rob, you have one that you're going to abstain from?
Yes, the Vassar Hospital capital grant.
Okay, noted.
Later.
Yep. Okey doke. Let's take up the approval of the minutes from January 24th, 2018. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Rob, second. Derek, thank you. I'm going to actually change chairs and get into a somewhat brief presentation on Empire State Development 2017. And before I do that, I just want to remind everyone where this came from. So this, both was an idea that started at the board because we have a lot on our plate. It seems like we have more on our plate all the time. So the opportunity to recap what we accomplished during the 2017 year. Simultaneously, the legislature asked ESD to put together a comprehensive economic development report for the year as they think about how has economic development been working in the state. And it's this time of year when there's budget negotiations and discussions going on. So our ability to provide information with respect to how we do and the kinds of impacts it's having is important to their deliberations as part of the budget process. So we're very proud to have put together and for all the work that we have done. If I start, identifying people who have worked on this report, the list is going to be long and wide. The whole agency has been actively involved in putting this together. But a couple of people really spent a ton of time writing. There's a lot in this report, and the directors all have a copy of it at their seats. But I want to recognize Moira Bailey, who did a ton of writing on this report, and I want to recognize Leo Mad Dog Momorsky, who did an amazing amount of work. I don't know if they're here, but I want to say the two of them, working with Kay, working with really the whole team, Laura at UBRI, who's often supporting our efforts, has done a great job. So thank everyone for their input. I'm going to add a few other things before I get into the slide presentation, because I'm sort of like becoming an old man. There's just certain things I want to say. And
Join the club.
so I
He's
just
learning
ask.
from the electeds.
So I just ask you to indulge me. I don't really, ask you to indulge me that often. We just kind of get through the board meetings. But I want you to indulge me. There's a few things I want to say. I want to say that what an honor it is to work with the over 500 people that are, make up Empire State Development. It's not the comptroller's job to pat us on the back, and it's not the legislator's job to pat us on the back, and it's not the media's job to pat us on the back. What's great about this country is we have these institutions, and they're all set up to some extent in intentionally in adversarial roles, right, to protect the public. And even though it doesn't always feel good to be in that fray, I think it's important that we, lead by example, and we respect the institutions, and we respect the process. And but I have the opportunity to say what a great job you do. And you do a great job. And we're making a big difference across the state. And I have a slide presentation which I'll go through pretty quickly that I think highlights some of the accomplishments in the way that we are participating in making the economy better, the way we're participating in implementing the governor's holistic vision for economic development, which I think has been transformative to many parts of the state. I want to, this report highlights certain divisions in some ways over others, but I intentionally say in my first paragraph to all of you that the work of all the ESD departments is reflected in all that we do. So whether it's legal, real estate, finance, marketing, public affairs, innovation and broadband, human resources, MWBE, small business, technology development, public policy, planning and incentives, economic analysis and research, information technology, administration, all unsung heroes of ESD. It takes the whole team working together, and that's what makes this place a great place to work. We work together as a team. Everybody chips in important ways, and that's reflected in this book, all that we do. I hope when you look at the book, I hope that you do look at the book, that you see yourself in the mirror, so to speak, of this book, because it's a reflection on all the good work I think we do here. I talk about economic development as a team sport, and the governor always talks about economic development as a team sport. He's referring to the legislature, but we're also referring to local IDAs that we work with. Oftentimes in economic development, we depend on IDAs, so we can offer certain incentives. Industrial development agencies can offer certain incentives. We communicate back and forth. Business leads come from different sources, economic development organizations, nonprofits. And if you think about the Amazon process, for example, we work closely with EDOs across the state. We worked with EDC here. We work with Westchester Economic Development Organizations, Long Island, in Buffalo, Invest Buffalo Niagara, in Rochester, GRE, in Albany, CEG, and in Syracuse, Center State CEO. We are part of this whole network of economic development organizations that are either being able to offer tangible benefits to businesses to create an environment for investment and employment, or we're working with them to help recruit businesses. But we have a pretty intricate network of communications that we do with municipalities and these organizations throughout the year. And so they're important partners of ours. We have broken this book down in part based on some of our strategies. And whenever you all kick me out of this job, you are going to be grateful that you don't have to hear me talk again about what our 4 pillars of economic development are. But today you do. The way we think about economic development, place-based investments play such an important role in what we do. And at the board here, we're oftentimes taking up and approving all these investments. And Joyce will say, I see we're doing a lot of projects in places like Buffalo and upstate. And we were just at an event in Rochester, which was so exciting. And Hilda was there. And it was called Rock the River. And Rochester, maybe you know it, maybe you don't, has the Genesee River runs right through Rochester. It is an underutilized asset. And if you look at what's happened in Buffalo, New York, with the activation of the inner harbor along Lake Erie and how that has changed kind of the whole mojo and attitude in Buffalo, and it's really brought downtown back to life, right? Activate the waterfront, transit-oriented development, historic tax credits and historic buildings, create more vitality, create more density, recognize that we lost a disproportionate share of young people over many decades, and that continues to provide a headwind against our economy, but it's important to identify it as a problem and address it through strategies that keep young people and bring young people back. And for the first time in upstate New York in a very long time across most all of these regions, we are really turning the corner and starting to grow the young adult population in upstate New York, which is extremely important. Rates of growth in new businesses are accelerating, venture capital is accelerating, real estate values are increasing, unemployment is decreasing. We are making a big difference. And all of these projects that we keep bringing forward, which is a perfect segue for me to thank the board. who invests a lot of time and reads all of our materials, albeit not so much in writing anymore, which I have too have struggled with. But thank you on behalf of everyone who works at ESD, to all the board members who have made such an important contribution to what we do here. It means a lot to us, your oversight, and thank you for that. We invest in workforce, and you see in this book a lot of initiatives around workforce. In many of our upstate areas in particular, we have retirement cliffs. Why do we have retirement cliffs? Because we have a problem with retirement cliffs because the young population left and older folks like me stayed, and now we're thinking about retiring, and we lost a generation of people. So if you're a welder, if you're a tradesman, if you're an electrician, if you're a plumber, no matter what you are, in upstate New York, we struggle with skilled workforce to come behind the retirement cliff that we face. And so identifying key industries, which we've done, and then training the workforce to take the jobs, right, that are going to be available is a really important initiative. And that's what we do. And one of your projects on the agenda today is the North Lane Corridor. That's a workforce development center on the east side of Buffalo, right in the neighborhoods where there is the most underemployment and unemployment. Again, very intentional strategy on our part to change the impacts of sprawl, to make very purposeful place-based investments, not only for vitality, but for workforce training and for jobs. When you spread 20% less population over 3 times the landmass, which we did in upstate over 40 years, we lost a big chunk of population and yet spread all the residents and businesses and office parks and manufacturing facilities over 2.5 to 3 times the landmass. What does it do to your city? It makes it harder if you don't have a car or can't afford a car or don't want a car. It makes it a lot harder for you to get to work. So it embeds poverty in the city by making the wrong decisions, the wrong place-based decisions. So they have consequences, and we identify that, and we address it. It's no coincidence that the Tesla plant in Buffalo is at the Old Republic Steel site in the city. It's no coincidence that the Northland Workforce Training Center is on the east side of Buffalo in a major transit corridor. It's no coincidence that one of the Buffalo Billion strategies is transit-oriented development. It's no coincidence that Binghamton, New York has a Better Buffalo Fund that uses that same model. It's no coincidence that Rochester is investing in its waterfront to create a cool downtown. It's no coincidence that our workforce development initiatives align with all the strategic industries that these regional councils have identified and strategic plans they have put together. The state has never, ever, ever had as robust a planning exercise and initiatives and impact as these regional plans have. And I spoke to Brookings just this week, who wants to talk about how is it that the state of New York has successfully gone about taking cluster analysis, taking cluster economic development theory from a concept to a reality. And we do that in every region of the state. I won't take you through it, but we can walk through every single strategic industry in every single region of the state. And when you look through this book and you see our URI initiatives, you will again see layered through that workforce, downtown revitalization, innovation, and those industries that we are doubling down on, whether it's the unmanned aerial vehicle industry in central New York, or photonics and optics in Syracuse, or clean energy and transportation, distribution in the southern tier, advanced manufacturing, tourism, life sciences in western New York. We can go on and on and on. This is all based on the governor's big idea to take a centralized model of economic development and bust it apart and break it into regional economic development strategies and get the regions of the state off of the sidelines and into the game of economic development, which is exactly what we did. You cannot, from Albany, New York, develop 10 robust regional economic development plans the way this state has done from Albany. There is nobody in the world smart enough to do that properly. It needs the engagement of the business community, labor, the political community, the academic community, in order to get innovation and to have a plan that can really hold water and make it worth the state's investment. And having that is perhaps the most impactful part of economic development, the most impactful change that has happened is that every one of these regions now has a plan. So whether the money comes from foundations or the county or the city or the state or the federal government, we can continue to evaluate those funds and direct those funds in a way that advances a plan. That is a lot different than the way economic development happened in the state, and that's why you're seeing things. And I'm going to read this to you, and thank you for continuing to indulge me, because Joyce has asked me, talk about Buffalo and some statistics on what has happened to Buffalo. I'm going to read this to you. From 2011 through 2016, there have been over 323 real estate development projects in the city of Buffalo, totaling $6.4 billion. On average, that's $1 billion of public and private investment each year since 2011, 9 times higher than the average amount invested in the city each year from 2006 to 2010. Young adults are returning to Western New York after decades of population decline and stagnation. The population of 18 to 34-year-olds grew by 3,343 per year on average. That's 16,717 people from 2010 to 2015, compared to a loss, a loss of 4,619 per year on average. That's 92,374 people from 1990 to 2010. You don't think economic development is firing on all cylinders now in the state of New York? You're mistaken. We have had a huge impact. About half of all active businesses across Western New York filed to do business in New York State since 2010. More businesses filed in 2016 than in any other year. We have, this story is repeated across upstate and across the state. We have over 1.1 million new jobs. Unemployment in the state is now 4.5% versus 8+%. In every region of the state, unemployment is down dramatically. Our plans are working. We are investing in workforce in downtowns. We're investing in people. We're investing in innovation. The most important part of organic growth of the economy is innovation. You'd be surprised at how many jobs in the economy are provided by companies that have been open for 1 year or less compared to companies that have been open for over 20 years. When we plant seeds of innovation through centers of excellence, centers of advanced technology, manufacturing extension partnerships, when we have programs like, yes, Startup New York, and other programs that connect industry and academia and research to entrepreneurs, we plant the seeds of our own economic future. It's important to do when we do business plan competitions like Luminate New York, 43 North, 76 West. We do business plan competitions in central New York around unmanned aerial systems. I was just in Rochester and I met all the winners of the competition in Luminate New York. They're all congregated now in buildings that we've supported, the redevelopment of Sibley's downtown. They are co-locating all of their innovation assets because that's exactly what you're trying to do. You're trying to create this collision of ideas and energy and entrepreneurship. So we are doing all of these things, and I won't take you through the slide presentation because I think I've covered pretty much everything. But that is what is making this state, from my standpoint, and its economic development apparatus work in a way that's different than what we used to do. It's the governor empowering us as an agency and the legislature empowering us as an agency, and our regions actively engaged in this process. And our four primary strategies, you take those strategies and you layer on top of it the governor's extraordinary focus on infrastructure, which we do here and we participate here at ESD, whether it's Moynihan or Javits or financing of the airports. Republic, broadband, the infrastructure of broadband. You think about how we have brought that to life and completed that project. And I know the governor was just in Plattsburgh and Jeff Nordhaus was just in Plattsburgh. And what a great job that team has done, bringing now 99.9% coverage of broadband once it gets built out. But we have now gone through 3 rounds of broadband. So think about the important role of broadband in the infrastructure of the economy. Think about airports, transit centers, convention centers. We are involved in all of those things. All this development of the strategy, you know that we are now tracking over 6,000 projects across the state from 7 years of regional economic development councils. You can find them in great detail on.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, no problem.
On our website, along with about 30 other reports in addition to, or 60 in addition to, the comprehensive annual report. I think you've all done a great job, and you should be proud. And that's the most important thing. You should be proud of the work that you do in delivering the governor's ambitious economic development agenda for the state of New York. And I encourage you to spend some time with the book, flip through it. It elaborates on a lot of the things that I sort of rifled through. But it's not often enough that you hear what a great job you're doing. And you won't hear it from some of those institutions that are, by definition and by mission, adversarial. But you'll hear it from me. I think you do a great job, and I'm proud to be part of it with you. Okay, I'm going to pass, I think, on the slide presentation unless you really want to see more.
No, I just want to say something, that it takes a great leader
Thank you.
to have a great team.
No, it's a pleasure working here, and you guys do a great job. Thank you, Hilda. All right.
Yeah, I've been through three or four chairmen of ESD, and through 3 different administrations, and the factors that really make a difference are just some of the things that you pointed out. But as a veteran here of the leadership and how it's the spark plug that makes it work, I will tell you that the governor is the most pro-business governor I think the state has ever had. I think there's no unquestioned. The other thing, though, is that, and I think you're right, Hilda, that you've done a terrific job, Howard, as a business guy, but also as a guy that's herding the economic development councils, which was a brilliant move. And you're right. The state would never appropriate the amount of money that would be needed to duplicate what the volunteers on all these economic development councils provide. You couldn't afford it.
Right.
But it's amazing how effective they are. Because I see it in the Mid-Hudson area.
Yep.
And you see it upstate. All the people that are involved, and they're all volunteers. And it's absolutely astounding. So as being around here and seeing how it's changed, I want to tell you how much of an honor it is to see how it has changed. And it's changed for the better, and I'm elated that you put together a comprehensive report that's as readable but also understandable to show. And you forget, we go month to month, project to project, but this thing, when I notice it and read it intuitively I think we're doing something, but this is a real telling document.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think it's important. I'm glad that we're circulating this. I'm assuming we're circulating this around all the
Oh, yeah, and it's posted on our
legislature
website.
and news media and all that.
Okay, team, thanks.
So thanks. I'm honored to be here.
in the same position as Rob. We've been together for quite a
true.
while.
That's true.
And through a number of administrators. And I really must say that your leadership and your hands-on involvement has made a tremendous difference in this agency and in its accomplishments. And I just felt that you should also be recognized
Thanks.
for your
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right, team.
Let's give it up for him, huh?
All right. Glenn, get me off of the, get me out of this situation. Where's Glenn? All right, thank you.
The director will be requested to consider 15 projects totaling $50,131,632 in grants and loan. The projects include 5 Buffalo Regional Innovation Cluster Awards, 5 Regional Council Awards, and 7 discretionary awards. The project will take place in Western New York, Southern Tier, Finger Lakes, Central New York, Mohawk Valley, and Mid-Hudson regions, leverage over $157 million of additional investment, and retain 1,650 jobs in the state. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Glenn. Is Mike Ball and Paul Tronalone from Western New York? I think we've got 5 items you guys are going to go through.
Good morning.
Hey.
Good morning, Howard. Good morning, board members. So we have 5 projects. I'll present the first 2, and then Paul will present the balance. So the first one is Bethlehem Steel Redevelopment Capital. So directors, we're requesting your approval of grants totaling $2,780,000 from the Regional Council Capital Fund for the Buffalo and Erie County Industrial Land Development Corporation, or what we refer to as the ILDC, for acquisition of up to 150 acres of vacant brownfield land on the former Bethlehem Steel site in the city of Lackawanna. The land acquisition was completed by the ILDC from Tecumseh Redevelopment Corporation for Erie County in July of 2017. So this acquisition has taken place. The total project cost is $11,080,000 and also includes the removal and relocation of rail tracks along Route 5 that were preventing property access, and design for extension of the Niagara River Shoreline Trail along New York State Route 5, which is adjacent to the Bethlehem Steel site. Those remaining improvements will be completed in December of 2018. So this is a priority project of the Western New York REDC. These grants before you today actually represent 2 separate allocations from the 2014 and 2015 rounds of the consolidated funding application process. In 2014, the project was awarded $500,000, and in 2015, the project was awarded $2,280,000, again, to assist with the land purchase and to leverage the other infrastructure improvements that I mentioned previously. Just over 93 of these acres are remediated to the New York DEC requirements and are eligible for the 2017 Brownfield Cleanup Program incentives. The remaining 54 acres will be entered into the Brownfield Cleanup Program that expires in 2026. The project, which aligns with the ESD placemaking pillars and the Western New York Smart Growth Strategy, will turn the largest vacant brownfield site in the Buffalo Niagara region into a shovel-ready, modern, well-designed industrial park that will attract and foster job creation in key industries such as advanced manufacturing and medium to heavy industrial companies. It's the only site in Erie County with rail, port, and easy highway access, and is one of the few available sites in Erie County that is zoned for heavy industry. The next project is Alexander Apartments Capital. Directors, we're requesting your approval of a $750,000 loan from the Buffalo Regional Innovation Cluster Fund for the Buffalo Fund Round 2 to Alexander Apartments LLC to offset the costs of conversion and historic renovation of a vacant 7-story, 19,530 square foot building at 510 Washington Street in downtown Buffalo. It was formerly a Lowe's Theater warehouse. The $5 million project will be completed by the end of this month, and tenants are going to start moving in March. The 7-story building was built in the 1920s and has been vacant and non-contributing to the city's tax roll for 18 years. It's part of the historic 500 block, which is a designated local historic preservation district in Buffalo's downtown core. It's the last remaining historic structure in this preservation district to be redeveloped and is being converted into new commercial and retail space on the first floor and 12 market rate loft apartments on floors 2 through 7. And there's currently a waiting list for all of those apartments. The project aligns with the ESD placemaking strategic pillar, as well as the Western New York REDC Smart Growth Strategy, and meets several goals of the Better Buffalo Fund Transit-Oriented Development Loan Program because it leverages existing transportation and service infrastructure. We're redeveloping an existing underutilized community asset. We're investing in commercial corridor that has experienced decades of disinvestment and encouraging pedestrian activity by providing more amenities and living accommodations within a walking distance of alternative transportation options.
Okay, Paul, are you going to pick it up?
I'm sorry, should I keep going, Howard?
Sorry, Mike, were you finished? Or did
Yes, I'm finished.
Did I cut you off? All right, we're going to take all the Western New York projects at once. So, Paul, if you'll keep going, then we'll take them all 5 at once.
No problem. Good morning, directors. Good morning, Howard. The third item involves grants totaling up to $25 million for the Buffalo Urban Development Corporation, or BUDC, to use for the renovation and relocation expenses associated with moving Buffalo Manufacturing Works to new space in the Northland Corridor redevelopment area on Buffalo's historic east side. Now, as background, and as Howard was discussing earlier, the board's aware of the governor's investment under the Buffalo Billion in the Northland Corridor in Buffalo, specifically related to the work with BUDC related to its first anchor tenant, the Northland Workforce Training Center, which will see its inaugural class in September of this year, and for which the board approved its last tranche of capital funding last month. Now, this project would co-locate Buffalo Manufacturing Works purposefully in the same building with the Workforce Training Center at 683 Northland Avenue. Given the governor's intent to redevelop this area as a state-of-the-art campus or place for workforce training and innovation in advanced manufacturing, in line with those 4 pillars Howard was discussing earlier. Now, Buffalo Manufacturing Works is a not-for-profit consulting organization that assists local manufacturers with new technologies, and they're currently housed in interim space on the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus. Now, $21.5 million of the funds would be used to outfit 51,000 square foot of space at 683 Northland, while the remaining $3.5 million would be used to support the moving, reinstallation, and recommissioning of large equipment and systems to this new location. And it's also important to note that BUDC is leveraging the funds we would be providing to secure an additional $13.5 million in historic and brownfields tax credits, and they will be used to renovate the remaining space at 683 Northland for new rent-paying tenants that will support the long-term sustainability of the campus. Now, moving on to the last 2 Western New York items, and I'll present these together because they're from the same fund. They involve 2 grants of $2.5 million each, one to the city of North Tonawanda in Niagara County and one to the city of Dunkirk in Chautauqua County for downtown improvements and placemaking. Now, under Phase 2 of the Buffalo Billion Program, a $20 million Smart Growth Community Fund was created to foster revitalization efforts in smaller Western New York communities, and it follows the same vision of the statewide Downtown Revitalization Initiative, fostering the best characteristics of compact, walkable communities using smart growth principles. These 2 communities are the first of 4 that were identified to receive grants in the first round of the Smart Growth Fund, and they were selected on a competitive basis out of the pool of Western New York applicants that were not selected for the statewide DRI program. Now, in the city of North Tonawanda along the Erie Canal, the grant would be used together with other state and local agency funds to cover improvements to Gateway Harbor Park on the Erie Canal, installing green infrastructure and other amenities on downtown streets and pocket parks to improve pedestrian and bicycle access, and to renovate the local YWCA in North Tonawanda into a mixed-use facility with women's housing and a social enterprise bakery. Now, in the city of Dunkirk along the Lake Erie waterfront, the grant would be used used to fund improvements to the Dunkirk Pier and adjoining waterfront trails, and streetscape improvements along Central Avenue to improve pedestrian and bicycle access and to create a stronger sense of connection between Dunkirk, the SUNY Fredonia campus, and the adjoining village of Fredonia. Now, finally, for each of these smart growth community grants, the directors are also being asked to make a determination of no significant effect on the environment pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And with that, that's all the Western New York items.
Okay, thanks, gentlemen. That's 5 Western New York items. Are there any questions from the directors on either of these 5 items? Is there any comment from the public on any of these 5 items? Is there a motion to approve them all? Thank you, Robert, Derek, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Okay, thanks very much. Next, Donna Howell from the Southern Tier. Donna? Donna, are you on the line, or Joe Roman? We will come back to the Southern Tier. Central New York, are you on the line, Jim Fail or Craig?
I am.
All right, why don't you take it away, and then we'll just go out of order a bit.
All right. This morning, the board is being asked to approve up to a $4 million grant to Madison County for their agricultural and renewable energy business park, better known as the R Park. This is a $6.3 million project, which basically is to put infrastructure, water, sewer, into a green space of 150 acres. The project was completed in December. This was a priority project of the regional council, and as a result of this business park, currently we're working with a company that's going to create 120 jobs as a result of having this infrastructure into this park. And I'd be glad to take any questions.
Okay, I think we're going to take, maybe Craig, are you on the line? Are you going to do the next item?
Yes, thank you, Howard.
Yeah.
Good morning to the directors. On December 21st, 2017, the directors approved a grant of up to $15 million to Nextgen Power Systems for the purchase of machinery and equipment. Nextgen will use the equipment at a facility in DeWitt, New York, owned by Fort Schuyler Management Corporation. They will use the facility to establish a manufacturing and R&D facility. A public hearing relating to this grant was held on January 19th in DeWitt, at which 3 questions were raised about the project. The first related to the presence of recapture provisions in the grant disbursement agreement. The answer to that question is yes, there will be recapture provisions. This is standard for all of ESD's grant disbursement agreements. In any year in which Nextgen fails to meet its job commitments, it will be required to pay back a pro rata portion of the grant. Additionally, Nextgen will invest an additional $48.5 million of its own money in machinery and equipment. ESD will have a security interest in this equipment that would allow it to take title to the equipment in the event Nextgen is unable to pay its recapture penalties in cash. The second question related to rent. Nextgen will be paying rent on the facility. It will start at $1 in the first year, but it will rise to fair market value by the 9th year of the lease term. The third question related to taxes. Nextgen will be responsible for all taxes associated with the facility, including property taxes and or pilot agreements. We believe that our responses to these questions have adequately addressed them, and we would ask the directors to affirm the general project plan.
Okay, so you've got 2 items. Are there any questions from the directors? The one we have taken up previously, as you know, the Nextgen. This was the repurposing of the facility originally intended for SORA. And, I think we have gone through that in some detail in terms of the opportunity that it presents for Central New York with gallium nitride technology in the semiconductor industry. So again, I'm proud of the team for, number one, doing a good job of due diligence with respect to Sora. We inherited a number of SUNY Poly projects, as you know. I think we've done a very professional and thorough job on these projects, either in some cases getting them back on track and in some cases parting ways. But that was our job, and I think repurposing this facility is the best opportunity by a long shot for Central New York than the direction that we were going. So I'll say that. Are there any questions for Jim or Craig on either of the two items from the directors? Joyce?
Yeah, I just had a question about the schedule for increasing the rents over that 9-year period until it reaches fair market. And I was wondering how that works in terms of how is the annual increase established? And is it related to the profitability of the facility?
Okay. I don't know if Kevin wants to take exactly how we came to those numbers, but let me start by telling you that these are negotiations with the companies. The prior deal had no rent payments for the entire length of the agreement. It's not unusual that we will work with, in addition, it's not unusual that we'll work with an IDA with respect to property taxes, which is another component of this, and I mentioned that early in our conversation about the way we work collaboratively with industrial development agencies. But it was a negotiation, plain and simple, with the company in terms of how we could help them succeed in the early years when they're basically going to be, by definition of any of these companies as they start up, their cash drains on them. So we try and increase the chances of their success. That's like any business. It's most fragile generally in the early first couple of years. And then the implied in this sort of escalating rent schedule, we don't have an equity interest in the business, is as you succeed, we succeed. So you ramp up the rent payments as a reflection on the fact that the company is now successful and hopefully theoretically generating cash flow. Building a business is a lot different than building a house. You build a house, I can show you a pretty clear schedule on what's going to happen when. Building a business is different. It's got more uncertainty to it, and we're trying to structure it in a way that gives the company an opportunity to succeed in the early years. There's no guarantees even there. But as it is the nature of fast-changing, emerging technologies getting to market quickly, that's one of the advantages of this building. It gives them an opportunity to get their technology to market quickly. That's why I'm hoping that we can make it through all of the approval processes necessary, both here and at other state levels. So I'd say, that's through a negotiation and through a recognition that the early years are the most burdensome for the business, and if they succeed, we succeed.
That's basically what I
Yep.
was concerned about, was that although when they reach a profitable stage, they should be paying rent. In the early stages,
Yep.
it could be very detrimental to the company to have to pay substantial rent.
Right. So and that's exactly what's reflected in those negotiations. You're trying to get the business to come. You've got a facility. You're hoping that, we can structure it in a way that gives them a chance to succeed. That's
Okay.
kind of
Thank you.
we're playing long ball with these types of investments, obviously, next generation industries. Other questions or comments from directors on either of these two items?
Great little projects.
Any comment from the public on either of these two items? Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Thanks.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay, thank you, gentlemen, appreciate it. Megan Taylor, are you on the line from the Mid-Hudson?
Yes, good morning, Howard.
Hey. Take it
So
away.
good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board as well. Today I am presenting a $1.25 million Regional Council Capital Grant Fund from 2015 for Phase 1 of Vassar Brothers Medical Center's four-phase, $450 million project to expand and modernize its campus and bring state-of-the-art medical care to the city of Poughkeepsie in Dutchess County. Vassar Brothers Medical Center invested $55 million in infrastructure, site work, and soft costs to complete Phase 1. In the next phase of the project, Vassar will begin construction of a nearly 700,000 square foot bed tower that will allow for the replacement of all existing semi-private medical and surgical rooms with 264 private inpatient rooms and 30 intensive care rooms, the replacement of most of the existing operating rooms and interventional procedure suites, and will create a new and expanded emergency department. Vassar Brothers has retained its 1,650 employees with this project. Founded in 1887, Vassar Brothers Medical Center is a private, not-for-profit, 365-bed hospital that serves New York's Mid-Hudson Valley, an area that includes all of Dutchess County and parts of Orange, Ulster, and Putnam counties. Located in Poughkeepsie, New York, Vassar Brothers offers an impressive range of vital primary, secondary, and tertiary medical and surgical services to the 1 million people who live within 45 minutes of the hospital. These services include critical care, emergency and multi-trauma medicine, robotic surgery, maternal and child health, ambulatory care, and medical and dental care for the underserved and uninsured. Phase 1 was completed in November of 2017, and the 1,650 jobs continue to be retained. This project aligns with the Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council's plan to undertake initiatives to retain and stimulate our more mature industries, such as distribution, financial and professional services, food and beverage, and healthcare, as these sectors represent large and vital anchor industries within the region. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Megan on this project? Any comments from, I'm sorry, Joyce.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This particular type of facility, it strikes me, has a number of advantages for the region in terms of promoting economic development in addition to the job creation function, because it also facilitates the retention of population in other industries because there is local high-quality medical care in the area. And it would seem to me that we should just point that out in our evaluation.
Yeah. Okay. Point taken. Other questions or comments? Any comments from the public on this item? Is there a motion to approve? Derek, second. Joyce, all in favor? Aye.
Abstain.
I'm sorry, Rob's abstaining. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Okay. Thank you. Vinny Esposito from the Finger Lakes has two items. Vinny.
Good morning, Howard. Good morning, directors. Excuse me. Yes, I have two items. The first one for you this morning is for the directors to approve a capital grant of $5,400,000 from the Upstate Revitalization Initiative for Monroe Community College to create a new Finger Lakes Regional Workforce Development Center, not coincidentally named the Forward Center, to go along with the Finger Lakes Forward URI plan, to create this facility at Eastman Business Park to help train people in the STEM fields for the jobs that we are trying to create at that park, primarily middle skills positions that require more than a high school education, but not quite a full four-year project. 4-year degree. This project has begun at Eastman Business Park and is currently operating in a temporary location. This funding, combined with $6 million from the SUNY 2020 capital program, will allow for the creation of an $11.4 million project in a new building, a renovated building at Eastman Business Park, a new location for them to operate. And we'll start work this year. Because this is a state-sponsored project, the funds will be advanced, and we're asking for your approval today before the project begins. The second project, the directors are being asked to approve a capital grant of $3,500,000 to the Open Market ESCO LLC, which is for the second phase of construction at the mixed-use Sibley building, which is the former Sibley department store in downtown Rochester. It's one of the largest buildings in the entire region and most of upstate at $1.1 million feet. This project is the second phase, which allows for the creation of apartments, commercial space, and retail space in the facility, which is a $64 million phase. This was a regional council priority project in round 6. The project has completed. There are people now living in this building. Tomorrow, Howard is going to be here to open up one of the other priority projects you've supported, council have supported, with the new high-tech Rochester downtown incubator. And so we're being asked for your approval of this project today.
Okay, thanks, Vinny. 2 items presented by Vinny here. Are there any questions or comments from directors on either of these 2 items? Sorry, Joyce?
I'm sorry, the conversion to residential units, does that include any affordable units?
Is there any affordable, Vinny?
Yes, it does. Yes, so it includes about 60% market rate and 40% affordable units. The tower is 12 stories tall, so I think it's 5 stories are being dedicated to the market rate, and another 4 stories are being dedicated to the affordable housing component, which is a separate third phase of this project that is primarily supported through New York State through Homes and Community Renewal.
That's what I was going to ask, okay.
Yeah. I mean, this is a, Hilda knows this building well. It's a beast in the middle of downtown, 1.1 million square feet of building that was fairly vacant, basically, and in disrepair. This is a massive project, great for downtown. Rochester, it has components of retail, components of innovation, all the high-tech Rochester spaces there. I think there's residential, both apartments, affordable, and maybe there's a senior housing component, I can't recall, and just general commercial space as well.
Not related to this project specifically, but to Rochesters Development. The New Yorker recently had an article about what was then the Xerox plant in Rochester. Mentioned, and the article was really about the printing process and how printers work, basically, in paper jams. But
there are no paper jams in Rochester.
Actually, there probably aren't, because they have the facility right there with the expert technicians. But one of the things that I noticed, I picked up in the article, was the author's description of walking through vacant buildings that had once been, and were still part of the facility, but were no longer used. Yep. And the vast amount of space, and also the vast amount of office equipment, just chairs and desks, that were piled up there, which was sort of heartbreaking to read.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the complete walking history of Rochester economic development, but I know that there were many tens of thousands of good-paying jobs lost in Rochester between Kodak downsizing and Xerox downsizing, something like 40,000 and others about jobs, good-paying jobs that were lost in Rochester. So coming back it's coming back, but those are devastating blows. The way Western New York lost steel, Rochester lost really a lot of white-collar jobs in a different way. Any other comments or questions of any on the 2 items presented? Any comments from the public? Or a motion to approve? Oh,
second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thanks, Vinny. Simone Bethune will present the Restore New York Communities item. Simone.
Thank you. The directors are being asked to approve 5 Round 4 Restore New York projects totaling $2,083,000. The first award of $350,000 is to the City of Fulton for demolition costs to revitalize the former Nestle site along the Route 481 Business District corridor. The Nestle site was considered a priority for rehabilitation in the city's 2016 comprehensive plan. The city cleared the site in August 2017 and was then able to proceed with construction of a new 18,000 square foot supermarket, which was completed in December 2017. Total project costs will be $2.9 million. The second award is to the Village of Gowanda for $324,000. With these funds, the village will complete the last restoration phase of the Gowanda Historic Hollywood Theater, originally constructed in 1926. Work includes facade and marquee upgrades, HVAC, and final code compliance upgrades. The project costs are $360,000, and the project will be completed in November 2019. The third grant is to the City of Binghamton for $534,000 to demolish the vacant Big Lots Plaza. The city intends to develop this site into a multi-purpose arena to include income-based housing and commercial space. The first phase of this project involved significant demolition to make the site shovel-ready and marketable, and the project was complete in December 2017 and totaled $594,000. The fourth award of $450,000 is to the City of Salamanca to rehabilitate the vacant Nyes Block building. The building, located in the heart of the city's business district, was an anchor for retail tenants, but fell into disrepair in the late 1990s. The first level of the building and its 8,150 square feet of commercial space will be renovated to fit the needs of prospective retail tenants, including updates to entrances, doorways, facade, interior walls, and ceilings. The project will be complete in November 2018 and total $500,000 in expenditures. And finally, we have a grant of $425,000 to the City of Gloversville to be used for renovations at the Fulton County Center for Regional Growth building, or the CRG building. The Restore project will serve to revitalize downtown Gloversville through rehabilitation of a 37,250 square foot commercial building into a business incubator to promote startup companies. The Fulton County Center for Regional Growth owns the building and will be the developer of the project. The project will total $775,000 in expenditures and see completion in September 2019.
Okay, any questions or comments for Simone on these Restore New York Community Capital Grants? Any comment from the public on this item, these awards? Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Simone, you've got the February non-discretionary projects consent calendar, right? And on the phone, I believe we have some folks from Brookhaven National Labs who will be available to answer any questions as well.
That's right.
So, and then Joe, if you're on the line, we're going to come back to you after this item that Simone presents.
Yes, Howard, I am on the line.
All right, we'll come back to you after this.
All right, thank you.
I have two non-discretionary awards. The first, the directors are being asked to approve a $15 million grant appropriated from the Transformative Investment Program to Brookhaven National Labs for construction of a new building that will house two newly acquired state-of-the-art electron microscopes for Brookhaven's cryo-electron microscopy project. The cryo-EM project is a significant opportunity for BNL and the state of New York to play a leadership role in this field. New York State's investment will attract continued and expanded support for scientific research and operation through partnerships with other entities, especially those in the pharmaceutical industry. The project is expected to complete in February 2020. And the directors are also being asked to approve a $400,000 grant to Center State CEO for the general operations of Center State CEO's economic development projects and programs. Some of these include public outreach, identifying competitive projects, and assisting groups to identify funding resources, and developing and implementing comprehensive and strategic business attraction programs. ESD funds will be utilized for these objectives through December 2019. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I know we have some Brookhaven folks on the line, Eric Hunt, Sean McSweeney, Eric Johnson. Do you want to add anything to, since you've joined us, would you like to talk about your project briefly?
Much to the board for the opportunity to speak to you this morning. We're very excited for this opportunity to create what will be the core of a new complementary capability for the structural biology work that's done at the laboratory, and the opportunity to try and attract more business from pharmaceutical industries who could use our structural tools for developing what we've come to call the next round of wonder drugs for tomorrow. It's actually a relatively modest investment to start with the pair of microscopes and a special high-performance laboratory in order to house the high-resolution microscope. And it's being designed with the possibility of future extension, both for the building and for the capabilities. And so it's a fairly straightforward project for us to execute, but very important to build a new capability for the laboratory.
Okay, thank you. Yep, Derek.
So this is for a non-scientist. This is for a non-scientist. Could you explain what crypto electron microscopes do that is kind of new or innovative, or what new contribution this kind of brings to the scientific field?
I'd
As simple as you
delighted
can.
to do so. I'm actually the project manager, and I'm really responsible for herding the cats, but they have explained to me enough that I think I can explain it to you. It's actually a cryo-electron microscope, and I work for the National Synchrotron Light Source 2, which is actually a $1 billion investment from the federal government to make what is currently the world's best photon microscope. Now, it turns out an important part of our community are instruments that will solve the structure of biological molecules. Unfortunately, for those techniques to work using X-rays, you need to work with molecules, chemical drugs that will crystallize. It turns out there are very important molecules that you would like to understand that do a bad job of crystallizing, so X-rays are really not very useful for knowing their structure. We wind up being at a wonderful crossroads right now because cryo-electron microscopes, which basically take single molecules and you can freeze them at liquid nitrogen sorts of temperatures to make them stable so you can look at them with a high voltage, high resolution electron microscope. Now it turns out you would damage those molecules very quickly, so what you need is an array of molecules. You look at many copies of the same thing, and through the advances in computing power, you can actually assemble the pictures from multiple copies into understanding the structures of these proteins that would otherwise not be available. This opens the opportunity for looking at drug targets as well as things that are in cell membranes, for example, that you otherwise couldn't understand. And so it opens a whole new range of things that you can have that would have applications in both health, life sciences sorts of things, as well as for looking at plants that might be used for improving sort of the diversity of our energy resources available to us.
Great.
So it's a really neat tool. There was a Nobel Prize that was run for this recently.
So it's not like the microscopes that we remember from high school and college biology that just sat on a table.
Afraid not.
I have a question, though, in terms of this technology. Are there many other centers for this technology or many other places where this kind of facility is available in the United States?
There are many universities and even some private industries that have access to these microscopes. The microscopes themselves are items of commerce. What is really, really unique about this situation here is that the new building for these microscopes is literally being built in the parking lot outside of my window, right in front of the NSLS2. And so this is very unique worldwide in terms of having people who are doing structural biology, doing crystallography, in the same physical location doing the cryo-electron microscopy. And as I noted before, one of the things that's really revolutionized this is the possibility of high-performance computing. Now, it turns out that ESD is actually supporting some high-performance computing already on the Brookhaven National Laboratory site. So there's a wonderful synergy of these things coming together in a way that's unique, not only in the United States, but worldwide. And I would have to say that Empire State has played an important role in bringing those things together.
Well, thank you. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you for participating. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thank you for joining us, to all the team at Brookhaven. Joe, we're going to come back to you now on the southern tier.
Great. Thank you, Howard. The directors are requested to approve a grant. It's $368,632 for the town of Union to be used for a portion of their cost for their construction and infrastructure and site work in order to build a levee extension and floodgate in Johnson City, Broome County. The town lost a significant amount of real estate, estimated about at $275 million in assessed value after the floods of 2011. This is obviously an effort to try to mitigate that. This will also leverage some monies from FEMA and also some monies from the Community Development Block Grant Program disaster recovery. As this project completes, it will allow for future development, both residential and commercial development at that site. The town applied through the round 5 of the CF application process and was awarded these monies. The total project cost for this is $994,847. And I'll be glad to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Any questions from the directors for Joe on this project? Any comments from the public on this? Is there a motion to approve?
Move it.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Let's see, so what's next? Jonathan Byer will present a Empire State New Market Corporation project. Jonathan.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. The New Market Tax Credit Program offers a non-refundable tax credit intended to encourage private capital investment in low-income communities. The U.S. Department of the Treasury's Community Development Financial Institutions Fund allocates NMTCs under a competitive application process. Empire State New Market Corporation, or ESNMC, is a subsidiary of ESD and administers the New Market tax credits for New York State, including requesting allocations and selecting eligible projects. ESNMC recently received a second allocation from the CDFI Fund in the amount of $55 million, and ESNMC has suballocated $5,500,000 for the SUNY Broome Culinary Arts Center project. This project consists of the restoration of the historic Carnegie Library building located in a highly distressed area of downtown Binghamton, New York, into a culinary school. The NMTC suballocation will be used for a portion of the cost of certain non-real estate costs for the project, including machinery and equipment, related installation, soft and transaction closing costs, as well as working capital. Although the ESNMC Board of Directors approves projects for NMTC purposes, the New York State Urban Development Corporation Act requires the ESD Board of Directors to separately determine that any such projects would otherwise be approved by ESD and are prioritized to demonstrate one or more goals. The project meets one or more of the statutorily required ESD goals for selecting a New Markets tax credit project, specifically creating or retaining jobs in low-income communities, supporting environmentally sustainable outcomes, and supporting efforts that otherwise benefit low-income community residents. The support for these findings are fully set forth in your materials, as well as the attached general project plan for the project approved by the ESNMC Board of Directors yesterday, not February 6th, as was indicated in the materials. The attached ESNMC GPP also provides detailed project and financing information. In addition, the project was awarded approximately $2.2 million of Round 4 REDC grant funds and was recently awarded another grant in the approximate amount of $3.3 million to cover additional project costs. By adopting the ESNMC General Project Plan, finding the project achieved one or more of the goals, and making other required findings, including conducting a hearing and environmental review, this project would be authorized by the UDC Act and fulfills the required statutory role for ESD. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a New Market tax credit allocation, right, from our corporation that is I forget how much, maybe $50 million of allocation or something like that.
$5,500,000.
Okay, but in total, ESD has a certain amount, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, the total allocation, yes, $55 million, yes.
Are these tax credits syndicated and sold, or are they for use just by the developer?
They're used by investors.
By investors, right. So has any consideration, and they have not yet been sold, I take it, to investors?
Well, the project hasn't closed yet, but
Right.
yes, they're committed.
But what my concern is simply that under the new tax law, the value of tax credits is changing substantially, and I'm wondering if that's been taken into consideration, how that's been taken into consideration in putting together the financing sources for the project.
I think the determination by the investors and by our review committee was taken into account really at the end of last year, before the full impact of the proposed, or now the existing new tax law took effect. And there's been no indication of anyone sort of changing their mind or otherwise not being interested in this project. In terms of future projects,
Yeah, there may be implication on future projects that the pricing will probably be.
It will be changing, yeah, and the tax credits will be worth a lot less.
yeah.
Yeah. Have the investors already committed to the purchase of the tax credits, or?
They've committed, but we're still working
But
on
it hasn't
the
closed,
documentation.
yeah. No, I understand, but there is a formal commitment.
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions or comments from directors? Any comment from the public? Is there a motion to approve? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Jonathan. Brian Keel will present a New York State Innovation Venture Capital Fund investment. Brian? Is Brian here?
Good morning, all. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Today we are requesting approval from the directors for an investment of up to $500,000 into a $7 million Series C preferred financing for Seamless Docs. Seamless Docs, a company based in New York City, has developed a software platform that converts outdated paper forms and PDF documents into user-friendly online processes. The company is targeting the government sector and has secured contracts with over 270 government agencies. The benefit is increased access from citizens to government services and more efficient government. The company previously received an investment of $1.75 million from the New York State Innovation Venture Capital Fund in March of 2016. Since that last financing, the company has made significant progress. They have proven out their sales process and reached critical mass in the marketplace, penetrating over 50% of the largest cities in the United States. They have also recently implemented two major additions to their product platform, Seamless Labs, a government website builder, and a government relationship manager, which is the first CRM system built specifically for government needs to manage workflows and data for better transparency among cities, citizens, vendors, and employees. Currently, the company employs 26 staff in New York City, which is an increase of 20 since the time of our initial investment. This round of financing has already closed with the other investors, and we are the final piece to it. I'm happy to answer any questions about this.
Any questions for Brian on this venture capital investment from directors? Any comment from the public on this item? Is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Derek. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Hilda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great.
This is great
Thank
that
you.
they're
Thanks,
progressing so
Brian.
well.
Yeah.
I think
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Brian. Jonathan, you're back up, right? You've got an item relating to Fountain Avenue land use improvement.
Yes, thank you. The directors are being asked to approve a modification to the modified Fountain Avenue land use improvement and residential project. The project was originally approved by the board in 2006. The project includes approximately 1,200 affordable housing units, and currently nearly two-thirds of the project is financed or in construction. The modification requested today is for the third and final phase of the project, which is anticipated to close on its financing this spring. The modification is being requested to accommodate an anticipated relocation of the administrative offices for the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, currently located at Brookhaven Development Center, into Building 2 on the new development. The modification includes allowing flexibility to modify the ground floor commercial space, the number of parking spaces to accommodate OPWDD, a change in the location of private open space in the building, and corresponding modifications to the design guidelines. Second, at the request of New York State Homes and Community Renewal to increase income diversity at B2, a modification is proposed to the restrictive declaration to broaden the income band of households that would be eligible for the development by creating a tier of units affordable to tenants at 80% of the area median income, rather than limiting the entire project to households earning up to 60% of AMI. This change is consistent with HCR's goal of promoting a wider mix of incomes within the affordable housing development it finances. This change would impact approximately 85 units, or 20% of the units in B2. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Jonathan. Are there any comments or questions from directors on this project? Any comments from the public on this item? Is there a motion to approve it? Derek, Hilda, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? No. Okay, we're good. I think we have one last administrative item, Kathleen, on actuarial valuation services. That's my favorite topic.
Oh, wow.
I hope you have a long,
Actuaries are such fun.
I hope you have a long description. All right.
All in favor?
Exactly. That's about all you have to say about it, Derek.
I spent 15 years working for pension
Thank you and
funds.
good morning. Authorization is being sought to approve a 6-year contract with Korn Ferry Hay Group for actuarial services in the amount not to exceed $38,500, including a 10% contingency. ESD is required to follow the accounting and disclosure requirements of Government Accounting Standards Board Statement Number 45, accounting and financial reporting by employers for post-employment benefits other than pensions. GASB 45, I think we've talked about it since it's been implemented during our budget talks. And it was first implemented in the fiscal year ended March 31, 2009. Since that time, the services of an actuarial firm have been used to provide the complex actuarial valuation required by GASB 45. To date, bids have been solicited from no less than 3 firms, and the Hay Group was selected to provide the necessary calculations. In 2016, Hay Group merged with Korn Ferry, and that firm continued to be selected to provide the required actuarial work. Given their expertise, extensive understanding of ESD's benefit structure, staff is seeking to authorization to enter into a 6-year contract term with Korn Ferry Hay Group. The contract will cover all actuarial services required under GASB 45 and other related statements that may be or have been issued by GASB for fiscal years 2017-18 through 2022-23. All valuation calculations are provided in a written report that includes all the data required for a footnote to ESD's annual audited financial statements. And I would like to note that the approval of this item is required because of the contract term, not the $38,500 amount. Thank you.
Okay. Any comments or questions from directors on this item for Kathleen? Is there any comment from the public on this item? Is there a motion to approve? All in favor? Okay. Boy, you're way ahead of me. Okay, thank you.
Good
Is there a
presentation,
provision that the actuary presents his reports in legible, understandable English?
And it's provided in a footnote to the financial statements, I think, which is pretty understandable. Okay. I understand.
All right, I think I have to say all in favor. Okay. There is no further business. There a motion to adjourn? Thank
Second.
you all. Jolly good.
Good.